however hopelessness trans people feel sometimes, there's no way in a million years that anybody's going to stop you.
No.
Because your sheer weight and numbers will make sure that everything gets through. I know there's going to be casualties along the way. And I know it's going to be difficult. But you know that they've been around for millions of years. And it ain't going to stop because of some old biddy doesn't like them. That ain't going to happen.
No,
because
it's really not.
People power will push it through. And with the politicians all changing, the decades will change. Things will become easier, you know. Things will be much more acceptable for trans people. You know, it might not be for a while. You know, things might edge closer, but they will eventually get better. And they will eventually be the most normal thing in the world, and nobody will bat an eyelid.
Yeah,
it's taken that long to get black footballers into playing, and it's just took an idiot to knock it back a couple of years. But again, that's where you need your FA to be strong, and they're useless on racism. So I suppose it'll be the same on LGBT issues as well.
More than likely. And you know, it's funny you mention obviously the issues people of colour have had in the past, and black footballers, and the thing that always gets me when it comes to the trans arguments, as you were, that get put out there by these anti-trans people, is they're all regurgitated rubbish. You know, the same stuff that they're coming out with towards trans people now is exactly the same thing they came out with to black athletes back in the day. If you look back at boxing, historically in boxing, there's papers out there and there's interviews with white boxers saying, we do not want to compete with black boxers because they are genetically superior to us, and they have advantages, and we don't think it's fair. We just want to box with white boxers. And it's the same peddled out, boring arguments that's being used now. There's research being done that disproves this, that again, people cherry pick what they want to hear, and it's the same stuff. And what really gets me down sometimes is thinking, why are we allowing history to repeat itself again? We've just been through all this, you know. Why are we now turning to trans people and putting these arguments out there and arguing freedom of speech as a cause, as a reason enough to target a minority group? You know, that's what gets me down.
Why? You know why it is, because in this world now, nobody has a place to go for truth.
No.
There is no place on earth that you can get the truth unless you are actually there in somewhere where it's actually proved. No, because you pick up a paper, the papers are pro-Tory at the moment, apart from probably one or two. So they just spin that. But you've had Trump, who can go on and be president of the United States, and blatantly lie, right? Blatantly lie, be homophobic and racist, sexist, and whatever he wants, gets away with it.
Every ist you can think of, really.
Yeah, you've got Boris Johnson, who does the same. Now, if there were two kids in your class, they'd be excluded. But we've all accepted that because they're politicians, it's okay to lie. But it's not okay for them to lie because they work for us. We should be able to sack them. And the problem with trans issues in sport is that for some reason when a trans person runs in a race, they go after the trans person, and if they want to change the rules, it's not the trans person's fault that they're running the race. They've done everything. So if they want to look at the rules, challenge the rules by all means. Don't challenge the person, and that's where it's going to end up in court. It's going to end up in court, and that's why the FA are useless, and all the other sporting organisations are useless, because they should be sitting around the table now and going, right, let's sort this out now, because it's going to take at least 10 years to sort out. And my fear is that all the trans kids who want to play sport will be frozen out. And we're going to lose a generation of really good sports people. And that's criminal.
And that is happening.
Well, it's got to be, isn't it? Because people are getting stopped from doing what they want. You know, and again, name me a coaching badge that talks about trans people.
I bet. Well, I'm willing to bet there isn't one.
No, because they'll put it in diversity training.
Is
But
that
it's
what
not
would cover your LGBT training normally then? Would that be it? Is there a diversity
yeah.
badge, I take it?
Well, they don't cover it really much. But if you look at it, I'm convinced there should be a holistic badge first. So you cover bullying, safeguarding, blah, blah, LGBT issues and things like that. So you know when Fred from down the road takes his kid teams, he's got an idea of how to treat the children as children and look for things and be able to support each one.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a dad now who's quite homophobic or set in his ways, if you like, and we, a trans kid come through or even a gay kid come through, does he then push his stuff onto that kid and into the team? Does he know how to cope with it? And I suspect most people will just treat them as kids, but there's some support you can give them, and they should be armed with some knowledge. Yes, so holistically, totally. You need a badge first, and then coach the sport. So coach the person first, and then coach the sport. Because without the person, there is no sport. So I do think we need to look at it. And I've never heard on any coaching session ever anything about trans, because they don't play sport, do they?
But it's not that we don't want to play sport. It's because, like you say, a lot of the time we are frozen out. I mean, even at my level, I have found it easier, and people can think of me what they like, but I've found it easier just to think I'm not going to play football anymore, because it just keeps me out of having to worry about it. And aside from the fact that I've had 4 strokes, which means I can't play now anyway. But even before then, it was easier for me just to say, you know what, I'll stay out of it. And in a way, that's my bad, because that's allowing them to win, I suppose. So I wasn't really part of the solution there. But if I'm just an average person, then a lot of people will feel that way.
Yeah, and it's difficult because sport is supposed to be fun. You play sport for fun, and then if you get good at it, then maybe you go up the ladder. But most people start playing sport because it's fun.
I loved it.
And if you're thinking about, hang on, I'm going to get my boots out now. Oh yeah, but what are they going to do? They're all going to do this. They're all going to do that. So you think you're a target walking in anyway. That's no way to go. So that's what I'm saying. If we're going to do coaching badges, then we have to make sure the coach creates the right environment for people and knows what happens if somebody does say, well, actually, I'm trans. What's an average coach supposed to do? What does he do? Does he send him home? Does he say, well, that's all right, join in here and add? Or does it, well, what does he do? So, but where's the information? There's none. So, it's easy with a gay lad, because you just say, well, that's okay, lad, you just muck in. If he's then transitioning to a girl, then he's got a real problem, hasn't he? Or if it's a girl that's come over to the boys, but whatever, there's problems there, because people on the ground and grassroots don't know what they're doing. And because sport and trans people have been so far apart, where is the connection? And there should be a connection. They should be met head on and say, well, like, okay, let's sort this. And because nobody can be asked sorting it out, there's going to be generations of trans kids who can't play the thing that they love. And that to me is criminal.
It is criminal.
It is criminal. It's criminal if any kid misses out on sport. If it's a trans kid and he's gone through what he's gone through, then I think it's criminal. And I think it's criminal because rules are great, but rules must change with society. And sport must change with society. And society has moved on into, gender or sexuality, whatever you want to call it. So it's moved on. So we need to go back and look at things and look at what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, what is fair and what is not fair. And that's the real issue you're going to have, is because you're going to have 10 scientists on one side, 10 scientists on the other, and it's probably going to come down to some judge who couldn't basically give a shit and will just do it on law and not, feeling.
Well, so we've had examples of that already, where it's gone to court and clearly the judge just has been biased or had completely wrong information fed to them, and made a judgment based on that. So it has already happened,
but if we're talking about there's got to be a new way to do it. And I still think the best way is I'm in unison. I'm a unison man. The best way is that you go to them and say, right, as an LGBT member, so your government, there's 3 million LGBTQ plus community people are going to vote for the opposition unless you sort this out. And that's the same where the power of one voice is massive. And I think if you can get the power of one voice together, you can change. And you know, I've always had this argument, you know, with black players coming through. If you join together, you're 10 times more powerful.
Yeah.
And the number of LGBT people is massive.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So why on earth is there no leader? Why is there no spokesperson for the whole of lot to say, right, look, what about we need this and we're not accepting that, we're not accepting that. What are you going to do about it? And he goes, well, you know, there's not much you can do. Well, you won't be saying that after the election because you'll be sat over there in the opposition's corner because we're not voting for you until we get this sorted out.
Yeah.
They would absolutely shit themselves.
Oh yeah, anything that comes between them and votes, they definitely would.
Yeah, and that's why, sex workers get together and try and do stuff. And that's why I think everybody should try and get together and do stuff, because if we want a society that we want, the only way we're going to get it is to go and do what we need to do, and that's to join forces and get things done. And I think at times, you know, I see a lot of bickering in the LGBT community at times. I don't quite understand that. So if you had, I don't know, for instance, you know, a head lesbian, a head gay man, a head pansexual, whatever you want, and you could vote for them in your region, and you are the leaders, and you've decided what your philosophy was and what you wanted to get out of it, and you know what you needed to change for anybody in that community. Then I think you've got half a chance. If you're wandering around and doing bits and pieces on your own, then you're going to struggle unless you get to the right people. And to get to the right people, you know, it's going to be easier for some than others. And I think it is difficult for everybody, but it does need a power shift. It is difficult, and that's one of the reasons why I get frustrated, and I think I don't get the bit with trans people. I really don't get it, because
my honest opinion is that it has just been a case of, you know, trans people as a whole, they have now turned their attention, their nasty intentions towards trans people, because it's far easier for them to do it towards trans people than it is other marginalized groups. Now they've turned us into their enemy, and that's how it feels from my point of view anyway. As a trans person,
I don't understand the logic in that. So what are you doing that's so wrong?
Well, this is it. We're not, and they are perpetuating myths and falsehoods and saying, oh, you know, prisons and all these different topics that they come up with. It's just a way of giving people someone to hate, because I think that is how governments can control people, is by giving them someone to hate, by saying, you know, you're one of us, you're on the side of common sense. It's the same that you get with this whole, you know, when
don't we actually get that we all hate him?
You know what it is, in his world he probably doesn't. I don't think he has any awareness at all, to be honest, which is sad, because she did.
It's got to be. Yeah, I look at it and go, right, okay, so there's a woman, as a trans woman goes into prison, right? She mixes with other women. She's more in danger than anybody else, because she becomes a target. Right? Well, they have guards. What are guards doing then? Surely you'd have a look at who comes in through the door, same as every other prison, and go, right, is she at risk for getting hurt, or is she a risk to hurt people, or is she a risk of hurting herself? One of them three things. Or is she okay? Okay, she's okay. Well, okay, so let's just make a mix. What's the problem with that? Because that's a sensible way of doing it. There doesn't need to be a drama about everything. And I'm thinking, right, okay, well, all the trans people I know, I've never heard of any of them rush into a toilet and attack a woman.
No, exactly. There's next to zero evidence to support that myth. It's the same kind of peddling rubbish that was peddled out, you know, about black people. Lesbians have had it as well, and that's even more sad when, you know, there are a lot of lesbians who are against trans people. You know, they're called TERFs, and that amazes me, because I just think there's one thing that's clearly missing in your life there, and it's not education, it's empathy. It's empathy, because you've surely been through this yourself, and now they're doing it to us. You know, why are you treating us this way, you know?
No, I don't get that. If somebody's, you know, if you're a lesbian who doesn't like trans people, but you like men, or you like men, but you prefer women. So it's just a bit mixed up for me. And I think anybody who belongs in that community must have a bond, because you all know that nothing's easy.
Exactly.
Nothing's an easy decision, is it? So no, I find it quite difficult at times to think, well, I still try and work out, there's trans people, like, okay, and then there's murderers, and there's rapists, and there's all these other people. Why are you focusing on trans people?
Yeah.
Why can't you just let somebody who's not doing any harm just get on with their lives?
Yeah, by and large, yeah.
But I don't understand. I've never known anybody sort of, you know, trans person attack somebody because they're trans.
No.
You attack somebody because you're a fucking idiot.
Basically,
you don't attack somebody. It's not because of who you are or what you are. Well, it is. It's because of your personality and your makeup. It's not whether you got a dress or trousers on, is it?
No. Exactly. Yeah.
It's who you are. So, like you're saying, I think the fundamental thing is that you don't change who you are.
No, you don't.
You're just
largely you don't. I mean, you do. Everybody changes. I mean, this is the kind of thing I've explained to, you know, family members and stuff, is that the one constant in the universe is that everything's always changing, whether you notice it or not. And when I say I'm still the same person, I am, but no one's the same person as they were yesterday, you know. So in that sense, I'm still the same as everybody else.
You have your values and you have your way of doing stuff.
Of course you do.
You keep them whether you got 3 heads or you got 1, I suppose. So I don't get, you know, I suppose it is come back to the same thing. You know, if you're trans and they expect you to have a pipe and slippers and you know, go and have a fight down the footy, and then the next day you're baking cookies and, you know, and rounding up kittens.
Yeah, and that's fine if you want to do that. It's just it's not always the way for everybody. You know, that's the thing.
You know, people, isn't it? Is if you go from that to that, you must be doing that then, because that's a man and a woman. But it's not, because the lines are so blurred.
Yeah.
Everybody likes everything.
Yeah.
It's not you know, it's not like the 1940s where every woman stayed at home and looked after the family, and all the fellas went out to work. The fellas didn't go out to work, and the women were struggling. And I think, okay, you know, it's not like that now, is it? You know, women are so stronger, and people are so much stronger, and they go out and they do other things. There's so much opportunities in the world.
I mean, I can.
You know, I don't go and. I've never set out to champion anything really, or be a spokesman for anything. I just do what I feel and what I want to do.
Yeah.
I don't have a plan. I don't say, well, there's certain things I like and certain things I don't. Certain things interest me, certain things don't. You know, and maybe it's been influenced by the you know, the people more. But I go back to the same thing, education, because I don't know what size shoes you are, but if I was transitioning, I'd need a size 12. So I wanted someone to come on and explain.
A little bit smaller. You might be able to lend me a pair of boots on a rainy day, but a little bit smaller.
So I wanted someone to come on and say, well, this is the practical things you need. So I think it's the practical things that people then start understanding. Where do you get your gear? How do you know? You know, how do people know how do they start learning how to put on makeup? How do they start doing their hair? How do they start, you know, getting the right size clothes themselves? where did he go? You know, because I've had people phoning, you know, to DMing me saying, look, you know, I'm trying to change, but I can't. I don't know where to get a dress. I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what size I am. I don't know what this is. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, I know about electrolysis, so I get that, but that's expensive. At times, it's quite painful.
Yeah, very.
You know, and then what I find also is that lots of people go so far and then go, I ain't doing it anymore. I'm happy the way I am. And that leads to the issue of they haven't transitioned, but they have transitioned. Yeah. So it becomes a halfway house, if you like.
Yeah, so, and I think where that's concerned is that everyone's transition's unique to them. You know, this is something that I try to say to people on Twitter. It's like, just because I've done a video saying I was able to overcome doing this, that, and the other, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to at the same time as what I did, because there's still things I'm scared of doing, you know.
Well, you're allowed to change your mind as well.
Of course you are. Yeah, of course you are. This is the thing, you know, there's no one saying that once you've started down a path that you have to follow it a certain way or end up at a certain place. There is literally no rule book. And I think when you do start thinking to yourself, if I don't achieve this, if I don't get to this point, I've not done it. That's when it starts getting problematic, because you're setting yourself up for failure. Just be you. You know, you there's no point in transitioning at all if you can't just be authentically yourself. You know, and if authentically yourself means stopping at a certain point, that's fine.
I use some of them. They want in their head they've got an idea of what they want to look like. So they in their head they want to look like something, and sometimes they get frustrated because they can't get to that point. Whether it be, you know, having boobs or whatever, or not being, having to wait, and the time's killing them. So the time makes them then self-doubt themselves. Sure. Is it what they really want to do? And then he might get a bit of stick on the internet, and then that leads to self-doubt. So it's really difficult to make that decision if you've got, like you say, maybe 3 years. Yeah. Maybe 3 years or whatever to wait. And then the period of self-doubt must be horrendous at times. It is. Because you go, and then you must sit down some days and go, well, I can't be asked for this.
Yeah, you do.
Maybe I'm better off where I was before.
You do have days like that, definitely. I mean, when I was waiting, you know what the real kick in the teeth for me was? When I got referred for the GIC, my weight was absolutely fine, bang on for where I needed to be for referrals to surgery, because comes to your BMI, like everything, you've got to have a certain BMI before they'll do any surgeries. And I was a normal BMI for my height and whatnot.
Yeah.
By the time I finished waiting, I was so sudden depressed and thinking, this day is never going to come. I'm having to, well, not having to, but for my own sanity, having to go to work, you know, presenting female. I'd came out at the time to work and all my family and friends, but no medication at that point, no hormones, you know, just barely started electrolysis. And I piled the weight on. I absolutely piled the weight on because I didn't feel like I had anything else. You know, I don't drink. I'm not an alcohol. I don't drink alcohol or anything like that. I turned to food. And by the time I got to the GIC, the chick turned around and say, yeah, well, we can't do a referral for surgery or anything yet because, you know, your BMI is too high. And I'm thinking, yeah, but it wasn't when I was referred. You know, it was all right then.
It's that support you get to manage that period, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and there isn't a lot.
It is. Support and education is key, isn't it?
Yeah, totally, it is. And
that's key for everything.
Yeah, and I think one of the positive messages, and I'm going to touch on this later on down the line with something else that I'm going to record anyway, is that from a trans point of view, when you are in that position where you're waiting for 3.5 years or 3 years, it's going to be frustrating. It's going to be annoying. There's going to be times when you're going to think just throw in the towel. But there's so much other stuff that you can be doing. So if you ever do get some, you know, a trans person on there that comes to you and they're feeling frustrated or whatever, just remind them of the things that they can change now without needing to have the gender clinics or, you know, private clinics. You know, there's your name. You can start, you know, you're growing your hair out every single day. There's the social transitioning, work on your voice. You know, my voice is horrendous. It's not, it doesn't pass as female at all, but I'm working on it. I'm doing voice coaching, but I couldn't, you know, use my woman voice, you know, talking to you now.
Why do you want to change your voice?
Because it doesn't sound feminine to me, and it causes problems when, especially if I'm talking on the telephone to anybody. So if I call a company, that causes issues straight away. You know, you get extra layers of data protection. It can be, you know, a way of outing myself in public that I might not necessarily feel like I want to out myself. You know, I don't mind talking about being trans, you know, it's my job, but I like to know that I'd have the choice to say to someone someday whether I am trans or not.
Yeah. So
that's why I'd want to change my voice. You know, it's not necessarily just because I want to sound, you know, like Fiona Bruce. it's more because it helps me socially transition, and it sounds more fitting to how I see myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I just think it's just normal, to be fair.
Yeah.
I told me I just saw your voice is your voice. I never really paid much attention.
Yeah, the only thing I wouldn't want to lose is my accent. I'd hate to not sound Geordie anymore.
You've got no chance of doing that, I'll tell you that now.
No. If you were to speak to someone or have a short message for someone who is transphobic on the internet, that's spreading hate or being homophobic or whatever, what would you say to them to try and get them back on track, or to try and just make them realize the error of their ways? What would your advice to that person be? We're always talking about the advice that would give trans people to help them, but I want to know what your message to them would be.
If I'm perfectly honest,
please.
Fuck off. Fuck off, scum.
Yeah. I had a feeling it was going to be short and sweet.
I don't see the point of them kind of people not interested. They don't want to change. And it's just their game.
Yeah.
I found people who do that lack intelligence and
understanding as well.
They play games every day to get attention, and it's not on. And I think if they could spend some time with somebody who is trans, then they would change their mind.
Yeah,
I really do. And that's the problem. Is that you never thought the problem with it? Well, there wouldn't be enough trans people to go around, would you?
No,
but maybe there is.
Well, maybe they've just not come out yet. But yeah, maybe you never know.
So you know, when it becomes, I think homophobia and racism and all that stops when it concerns you and your family.
Yeah, totally.
Because you get into that thing. Well, hang on a minute. Do you know a number of people well, this, that, and the other should be over here. Where'd you go Saturday? Oh yeah, went down to town. Went to Asda. Well, that's not British. Yeah, then you went for a Chinese. That's not British. You went there. Yeah, but that's not British. The clothes you got on are not British. You go, yeah, but these people, they're all right, aren't they? Because we know the sound. So once you make things personal, it's different. And I'm sure there is people who make attacks on trans people because they can. And if it wasn't trans people, it's something else.
It would be.
They're just people who pull legs off flies and stuff like that, aren't they? So
they're just being cruel. Yeah.
Well, I think it is really, if I was a trans person, would I have social media? Yeah, I probably would to join all the other people, but I wouldn't take any notice of the people. But it was just saying, this is how I see trans people, right? When I walked into a stadium, I knew half the people didn't like me. I also knew the other half did.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
Trans people have got to think, yes, there might be a lot of people who don't like me. Not because they know me, just because I'm the enemy in their eyes. Half the people support me as well. So concentrate on the positives and the support, stuff the rest of them.
Yeah, cool.
And if anything, lead your life the way you want to, just to really, really piss them off.
Yeah, because that's the thing, and this is what I said to someone the other week, that it doesn't matter what they say to you or how much they try to tear strips off of you or whatever. As long as you exist and keep being your amazing individual self, they've lost. You've won. That's it.
Yeah.
There is nothing more.
You could really annoy them by being happy.
Yeah.
That's what I was. Be happy. really annoy the shit out of them all.
Yeah, they hate that. Yeah, I mean, I had it very quickly. I had it, a couple of weeks ago. I put a picture on of myself before I transitioned, and a picture of myself relatively what I look like now.
Yeah.
And I'd been through a lot back then. I'd lost a lot of weight compared to, I've lost a lot of weight now compared to what I was then, is what I'm trying to say. And I got so much good support off there. There was, 100 and odd people liked it, and God knows how many commented.
Yeah.
One idiot has to come on, I don't think that men can be women. And I thought, oh, for God's sake. So I engaged wrongly. I wrongly engaged. And you know what? I can take most things, and I go on there because I want to show a positive example and be an ambassador for people who are trans. I want to, help educate and make it easier for people. Guy read my profile, saw that I'd had a stroke, and said, I wish the stroke had have killed you. And I just thought, what is going on in your life as a troll to actually say that to somebody? My strokes were at Christmas. They weren't that long ago. And it did upset me. And I thought, God, that was the first time I've had real venom thrown my way. It must be horrible for anyone that's of a higher profile as well.
I know my mate had one the other day, but he said, he had pancreatic cancer. They DM'd him and said, "Oh, I wish it was terminal next time." So there are them people about. But look, if they're annoying you, they're not annoying anybody else, are they?
No,
exactly. So that's the way I.
Exactly.
And the nicest thing is that once I finished in that ground and I won, I just had a nice cheery wave for them people as I was walking out the stadium, and they absolutely hated it. So I always think, well, yeah, okay. If you want to go down that road, I don't care. Because let's be honest, their banter is absolutely shit.
Yeah.
And sometimes I write that back. I wouldn't mind, but your banter's absolutely shit, and they don't know where to go from there.
No, yeah, exactly. And I think they might try using that one. They might try using that.
It is normally, isn't it? It's usually the same old rubbish.
Well, that's it is. It's not even original. It's not original. But look,
no.
Neville, I have kept you long enough, and I am very, very, very grateful for having you on. Honestly, it's just been lovely getting to know you a little bit more, forgetting the fact that you've came on my channel. It's just nice getting to know you as a person, quite frankly.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Okay, I really appreciate it. Okay, and I'll catch you up in there. You too. All the best, my friend. Take care.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.